Okay, we're trying this new series where I find a company and draft a campaign as if I was working there. This is without any context of what their actual strategy is. I'm not looking at their emails. This isn't a tear down. It's purely inspirational. Like, what would I do if I were? This is going to morph as we go along. And so we'll see. Each one will hopefully be better, but this is the first one. So I chose Wizehire because I found them out of a list in Sales Nav. And that's about the criteria that I used. And I'm going to approach building an onboarding campaign for them. And the example email is a welcome. Okay. The nice thing with this approach is I don't have limits. I don't have data limits. I don't have other constraints. So I can think pretty freely on what I would want. And I'm going to talk through my process of how I got there. And ideally, every time I do this, I'm actually going to change that process up a little. So here's what I did. I used Claude to help me do a lot of this. And the first thing I needed to do, which I do with every client that I get in, is understand the product at least a little. So to do that, I had Claude run a research report on Wizehire, particularly focus on, since I'm doing an onboarding sequence here, what were the key moments that their customers need to do? What are they trying to solve, right? So what I've done is I have this onboarding plan, and Claude gave me this brief. It gives me a snapshot. It reviews their ideal customer profile. But the place I spent the most time mulling over is this product activation map, right? And particularly these friction points. And what this says is right here is that the single most important activation action is publishing a live post. I spent a little bit of time comparing with their site to see if that made sense. And as you dig through it, I think at face value it does. It's a hiring platform. So the first place you get to getting someone on your team is to post the job. There's a lot of other solutions here, which I didn't spend time digging into. It made sense of the core use cases. So taking that at face value, we look at, there's some other secondary stuff, but then we start outlining what that might look like in onboarding. And with all of this information, then I took that research, and I actually currently with my own clients have a campaign outline generator. The goal of that generator is to put together a one-page doc, something pretty brief that my clients would be able to read through and then understand what we're trying to accomplish with the campaign. So our campaign goal for onboarding is to get them their first job post published. That is first and foremost what we want to do. I went through several edits of this, and it tended to just push me first straight back into the platform. But I wanted to take a little bit of a different view here because that didn't feel like a differentiator in terms of email copy. I imagine it wouldn't be a differentiator. Everybody that's like a job board and stuff would say, come back, post your first position. So I went with the idea that with Wizehire, a differentiator is that we're going to decrease the effort it takes to make that position live. And sorry, I'm just kind of looking over here. We want to essentially express that there's some momentum behind what they're doing. So this is the hypothesis, right? Like I want that first touch point with an email to reduce the perceived effort it takes for someone to get their post out the door. And this is really important because like this line here is really important to keeping track of, is because there's no PLG motion here, right? Like if you look at pricing, there's no free version. You have to pay to get started. So if I'm coming to Wizehire and I'm wanting to get going, I'm invested a little bit already, so I'm motivated to get it out of it. I want them to feel like they're already on their way and reducing their perceived effort. I haven't gone through their actual onboarding yet. That's maybe something I could do in the future. And which leads me then to, I would need some of that data. So let's assume that I do get some of that data from onboarding immediately into my ESP. Even if I don't, I think this could work based on AI stuff. So my route with the welcome is rather than just saying, hey, welcome, post your first job, I'm trying to get this feeling of, hey, like you've already got it ready. Like we're going to now do the work for you. They did. I did find like one of their things they like to publish here is that they've got job templates. So if you don't have a description already made, they've got a bunch of them here already. You can just copy and repurpose. I'm trying to lean into that portion of the product here. So I drafted this copy using Claude. I did a little bit of back and forth in editing for the sake of, and there were minimal edits. And actually, you'll see I left these EM dashes here just because. But where I spent my time editing is I actually wanted to make them feel like they had a post ready. They just have to get it out the door. And so I wanted almost like a visual component of what their job post could look like. So if I get the data from onboarding, what I'd love is whatever they tell me in onboarding of what they need to hire, I want to surface that in email and say, this is what it looks like in the product. If they actually do already create it, if they're pretty fast, we can maybe surface that. Otherwise, it's a little more aspirational. If we know stuff about them through enrichment, we say, you're probably hiring this kind of person. This is what it would look like to post it on Wizehire. So that's the route I went. And here's what that looks like visually. Ignore the branding stuff. I can spend more time on that. I really wanted to make sure the CTA was super clear at the top with very little ambiguity. So starting your first job post, if they read any of this, it doesn't, if they don't read it, it doesn't really matter because they know that's their first step, right? But here's what I really like. If they spend the time saying, yeah, that's what I came here to do, I want to basically say, look, we've got templates to help you. Here's what yours could look like in just a few minutes. And here's an example post. They tell us who they want to hire in the onboarding process. I'd assume I could just populate that in here with all the data that we have and ship it. I want them to feel like, again, the perceived effort of getting this out the door is lower. And so that when they have this ready, maybe there's even, as I'm talking this through, there's an extra little button like a secondary CTA, use this position or something, or use this post. If they've told us what they want to do, but they didn't create it in the product, that would be one way I'd want to look at it. Hopefully this thought process was a little interesting to you, maybe spark some inspiration and ideas. And if not, try again and see if I can impress you otherwise. But it was a fun little exercise. I think I'll try and do these more and we'll see where this goes.